Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I think we have everybody that was in the waiting room into the meeting. So you want to take it away, Krista?
Sure, let's go ahead and get started. And I will first say welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening for the New York Backcountry Hunters and Anglers virtual Learn to Hunt, or in this case, Fish series. This is a monthly series that we're bringing to you to help you learn skills that you can use to get into the outdoors, get started hunting or angling. And hopefully come join us here at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We are a public land advocacy organization that is nationwide. And we are specifically the chapter here in New York representing with this virtual Learn to Hunt series. So our guest tonight for our presentation, Fly Fishing from Cast to Catch, is Kelly Bukta she is the co-owner of Daddy Flies in the Catskills, which if you don't know about that fly shop, you should soon learn about that fly shop if you're interested in fly fishing. She's an 18-year English teacher turned fly shop co-owner with a passion for fly fishing and fly tying. She's been a member of the Backcountry and Hunters and Anglers Board here in New York since the beginning of the year in January 2021. And we are so ecstatic to have Kelly presenting tonight and teaching us everything we need to know from cast to catch to get started fly fishing. So Kelly, please take it away.
Awesome. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. We almost hit 50 in the Catskills today, Livingston Manor, Roscoe area. So that was exciting stuff. And if mom and dad are watching, hey. All right. So just a quick welcome. As Krista had said, I consider myself an angler and a conservationist, former teacher. So I'm always willing to teach and to learn and pick something up. I've been a owner of the co-owner of the fly shop for, this is going on year number 3. I am not a licensed guide. I'm not going to pretend to be one. I'm not going to claim to be one. I don't want to be one. There's plenty of guides out there and I love what they do. And I love that they guide because they have that same passion and energy for teaching and exploration. But I love the position that I have where I could enjoy talking to people about fishing, hearing their stories and sharing their stories and not have all the responsibilities of guiding. My goal tonight for you is to provide an overview of fly fishing. I hope it's something for everyone. I hope there's a lot of things to learn and to unpack and absorb, and to also talk about conservation stewardship, because that's the main thing that's close to my heart. Our shop is 93 years old. It's a 4th generation family owned business that was founded on flies, angling, and the preservation and the conservation of the Catskills, where we are, particularly the Beaverkill, the Willow Weemock, the Neversink, the East and West Branch and main stem of the Delaware are our home waters, along with tons of little creeks and tribs that we love. Want to raise awareness, offer insight and example, and provide a starting point for new anglers, because there are a lot of new people hitting the water or camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, all sorts of things, biking, you name it. And that's a wonderful thing, because the more people who are using public lands, the more we'll have voices for the trees and the rivers and the watersheds. All right. So let's talk stewardship. Purchase a license before we even start fishing, wherever you plan to fish. It's required for all anglers. If you're over 16 in New York, 18 in some other states, 13 in others. The monies go to conservation and fish management. It's a good thing to have that license. All states have free fishing days, so takemefishing.org will help you find that fishing day. And licenses today are easily to buy online. You could get them right on your cell phone, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be fishing with a license. Practice responsible recreation. That's a new buzzword in the outdoor industry. Leave no trace, cleaning up trash, knowing your public fishing rights. That's what they're called in the New York State, PFRs, but Connecticut just has public access or public fishing access, PFAs. Know the regulations, and on April 1st, they do change for us, so keep an eye on that. And practice catch and release and legal harvest limits. If you're choosing to take a fish, be in the legal harvest limit, and be open to the experiences, good, bad, indifferent, ugly. That's what life is. Fly fishing is no different, and always continue to seek out information.
Cool. Let's do a quick poll. Thank you for that, Kelly. So folks, there's a poll up in your, should be on your screen. And we want to see if you know when New York State's trout season opens. trout season here, folks. Do you know when it opens? When is it legal to fish for trout in New York State? Anybody else want to answer here? All right, so it looks like 78% of people said April 1st and 22% of folks said May 1st. By the way, this is a trick question. Kelly, do you want to extrapolate on that a little bit?
Because trout season, as of April 1st, 2021, the DEC has approved for trout fishing and fishing to be year-round in New York, meaning that you could fish year-round for trout in catch and release areas, but through April 1st to October 15th, that's when you can harvest a trout or take a trout from a river to eat. So it is a bit of a trick question. So yes, fishing is open year round, but no, there are restrictions in a certain time frame. And those restrictions are to protect fish that are spawning, to give them some time to recoup and heal themselves as they move up into their winter hibernation and hunker down, and to no stocking during those time periods. So it looks like we did good on April 1st. All right, so let's talk why fly fish. Fly fishing involves casting a fly line with an artificial lure. That's why they call it fly fishing, opposed to spin fishing or terminal tackle or conventional fishing. It's most popularly and notably for trout fishing. However, all species that you can catch on a fly rod, from peacock bass to rooster fish to tuna to carp to pond fish such as catfish, pickerel, sunfish. It has been around since the 1500s, founded by a woman, Dame Juliana Berners, who first tied some feathers and fur to a hook on a string and went fishing. Fly fishing involves observation, and I think that's the learning curve that is intimidating for many, but also intriguing for others. It's a challenge, but you let your mind wander, you enjoy your time on the river. Above all things, you have fun, enjoy the moment. It's the observation of water conditions, the birds, the flora, the fauna that are all around. There's a restorative and a healing nature to fly fishing. That's been a lot publicized in the media and articles in such groups as Casting for Recovery, Project Healing Waters with PTSD veterans, cancer patients who are recovering or in the process of healing. Fly fishing literally immerses the angler in the water. You're wearing a set of waders or wet wading, so you literally are standing in a river, waving a bamboo, fiberglass, or graphite rod as you're trying to catch. And above all, it brings you into that natural environment. Trout do live in beautiful places. This is something that anybody can fish, whether it's accessibility issues, that they could find ways to adapt. That learning curve is there, but we fish because we carry it on for that 2.0 angler and the next generation. So let's talk about some fly fishing stats. Right now, there are currently, and this information comes from the takemefishing.org, the Recreation Boating and Fishing Foundation, RBFF, 7 million fly anglers, 1.5 boasted being female or identifying as female. It has the fastest growing segment of participation, meaning that people are willing to try fly fishing over camping, over hiking, over saltwater fishing, over freshwater fishing, but specifically fly fishing. And what's neat to know is that there is a changing perception of the sport. That largest number, 43%, is a demographic of 18 to 44. So that's a pretty large, that's from your average high school student all the way up into people who are midway starting their careers, and then close on the heels, 38%, 45 and above. So it truly is a sport, and 19% for young children too, even 6 to 17. So just throw some numbers out there if you like that stuff. Some more stats from takemefishing.org, the RBFF. This is a great little infographic. They survey anglers and create a special report, and you can find it online. I cited that for you. It's available to the public, and it provides insight into several key areas. And I love this little demographic, is that because of COVID-19, we started to see people being outdoors as a key motivator because there has been quarantines and proclivity for people to stay indoors and not use their normal recreation activities of maybe outdoor concerts or going to beaches or going to restaurants and other such group gatherings. This is a group of people who are driving the growth in fishing. So that's a great thing because that means we'll start to see tackle prices and fishing become more accessible in terms of price. We'll see more people on the water protecting the water and enjoying those benefits of fishing. So some basics of fly fishing and the very general basics of it. There's a lot to absorb. I think that's sometimes what scares most people away. But above all items, excluding flies, these are the basics. A fly rod, and it could come in several different types of materials that cast your fly line. It is a different rod than a spin rod, which would use a heavier lure, maybe made out of metal or some other plastic, artificial plastic that's lobbed out, that's casted out into a water body and sinks. Fly fishing does not have that. It's a very lightweight rod and a lightweight reel that's balanced out by a fly line that projects the fly. The casting is what brings the fly to the water. The fly reel does balance out the fly rod. It holds the fly line, the leader and tippet, which is thus cast into the water. And then your fly line, leaders and tippet. So there is a bit of a setup to it. Any local fly shop, YouTube instruction videos, online, some of your big box stores, LLB and Cabela's have clinics, Orvis, there's tons of ones that you could take a look at. I won't be reading exactly from the slide because you have it there, but I'll be throwing in some knowledge there. The price point for materials and for gear is the lowest it's ever been in the industry of fly fishing. There's a lot of new materials, company styles, there's rentals, used gear. There's lots of opportunities out there to get involved and engaged and hooked into the sport. Total pun intended. All right, some knot sense, another pun intended there. Knots are are one of the base foundations of fishing because you can't put all these materials together without tying knots. And this little demonstration from animatedknots.com shows you from the fly line to the backing, to the line, the leader and tippet to the fly, what it looks like coming off of the fly reel. And when it comes down to it, the gear today allows you to basically skip learning some of the knots if you want to. The knots, there's already leaders that have loops and fly lines that have loops that make it easy to connect. But if you wanted to start from putting the backing onto the reel, you could use an arbor knot or you could use a nail knot. Some people do different methods of how they use it. Then from the reel to the backing and then the fly line, then your leader, your tippet, and your fly. And these are all materials that are made out of PVC, composite monocore braided line for the fly line. The leader and tippet are usually nylon fluorocarbon materials that are extruded to a very thin, almost to the point of size of a human hair. A little thicker than that is what holds the fly. And weight-wise, they will hold anywhere from 3 pounds to 10, 15 pounds or more. Once we talk about knots in our basic of fly rod, reel, and line, we have safety. And I haven't talked about any of the other extra gears because safety is important when you're on the water. Fly fishing is an immersed water activity. Even if you're standing from the bank, you're close enough to the river. You want to make sure that you have your hat and eyes protected because there are always wind casts and errant casts to protect yourself. Buffs and neck gaiters are very popular in lieu of wearing masks, but they also protect you from sun and bugs. Sunglasses protect your eyes. Water bottle for hydration. And if you're going out all day, especially if you're heading out by yourself, make sure you carry a whistle because that's the best sound over running water. If you should be injured and there's running water, it's easy to yell, but sound over water is very hard to hear, but a whistle is an alert sound. So that's always something I like to point out. Flashlights or glow sticks, especially if you're going to be fishing dusk into the evening, to have that. A waiting staff for security when you're walking. Again, sometimes you're walking off the beaten path, you're walking up and down hills or trodden trails. So you always want to make sure that you have some gear with you to be safe. And lastly, bug spray and bear spray. And that footprint is a friend of mine. We were fishing up by the reservoirs on the Delaware River. And I said, oh, look at that big indentation. And then we realized it was a very big bear print compared to his boot print. And that's a men's size, it's a size 12 and a half. So that's a pretty nice big little bear print there. We're not the only ones out there fishing. There are many others.
Let's do a poll real quick, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
We get into that. Real quick, I just want to see if folks know where to find trout. If you were going to go look for trout, what would be the place that you would want to look for them for? We're talking about trout specifically here, not bass or crappie or perch or anything like that, but specifically trout. Where would you go to find some trout? Awesome. All right, we got some smart folks here. So 91% of folks said cold, clear, clean streams that stay consistently cool even in the summer months. And that's something really important to know because trout really are dependent on the environment and a clean environment. And they are sort of a keystone species that will indicate where there's good, clean, unpolluted water. So to be a trout fisherman, you really need to be conservation minded in order to make sure that we have the resources that support trout. All right,
Awesome.
Kelly.
Thank you. Continuing along from safety, some basic gear of waders, boots, your storage, your vest, your backpack, your net, your fly box. These are some of the things that round out what you see in magazines and pictures, what you see the typical angler wearing, whether it's the fishing vest or it's a net. There's all sorts of styles and colors and shapes and sizes and price points for everyone, but they're good things to have. Waders are useful in the water because they do keep you they do keep the water off of you as they are waterproof in that sense, especially if they're the style waders that are lightweight and breathable. There's also neoprene. The boots help you navigate the water, but also as you're walking to the river and walking from, waders will help you protect you from ticks. You'll see them. They are light color usually or light gray color, not all the time, but they do serve another point for that as another added layer of protection. And I do advocate taking a net with you because especially when you're catching a fish, you want to have a net available to make sure that the fish is properly secure when you're taking the fly out of his mouth or her mouth if you gender your fish. And it's a good tool to have. It also helps steady you in the river. Some additional gear. There's always more, from forceps to nippers to zingers to float to weight. These are all additional things that make the water easy for you. Added extras that make life easier, that make fishing easier. Fishing a certain type of fly, a dry fly, floatant, silicone dressing will keep the fly floating on the surface to make that take much easier to spot when the fly is floating correctly. Strike indicators if you're choosing to nymph fish. These are all different styles of fly fishing or methods of fly fishing. A thermometer, as Krista said, is indeed important. Cold water species, no fishing above 68 degrees. That's what we like to say at the shop. There are some people who will push it to 70 or 72, but the buildup of lactic acid in trout in their muscles as the water temperatures increase, it's not fair to fight them. It's at that point you're just it's killing them for the sport and letting them thrive in their cold water habitat. But still, when the water gets high, sunfish, bass, pickerel, all sorts of carp, great fly fishing opportunities that are out there. If you're near the salt water, if you're on New York City, Long Island area, great water and inlets there that you could fish in the bays as well. Magnifiers gives your eyes some support, especially if your eyesight's dwindling when you're tying on supplies. But this is just some additional gear for the new person to the seasoned fly fishing person. They're sure they have this gear with them. Fly casting and why it's called fly fishing is one of the utmost importance, aside from having that typical gear, is casting. The art of casting is what makes fly fishing what it is. That fly that you're using, with the exception of an articulated streamer or a heavier fly, is composed of feathers, furs, synthetic materials. It's extremely lightweight. So casting is what propels the fly on the water and gets it to the target, in this case, which is your fish, whether it's a rising trout or it's a trout that's hanging out on the bottom and you're nymphing for that fish. That's what you use. Flies don't have that weight, so the casting comes in the power of the angler who's casting the rod out. There are several styles of casting methods, schools and videos, and so much that you could educate yourself with. But the three types that are simple are the overhead back cast, which lifts the line off the water, goes backwards and goes forward. and presents the fly on the water. The side cast is the same simple form as the overhead, except it uses a side motion. And the roll cast is when you gently lift the line off the water and then roll it back in a one quick motion. As important as casting is mending the line, because that would reposition the fly line on the water and the surface with the desired movement. All anglers want a drag-free drift to keep their fly in the correct water column. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about reading the water. How are we doing so far? I know I feel like I've put a lot of information out. I don't know if there's any questions or if there's anything in the chat box. I haven't checked that just to see before we move along.
Let's do another poll real quick and give people also a chance to maybe drop some questions in the chat. Also, so next poll question is, which fly was invented on the Esopus Creek in the Catskills? We're going to see if you know this. You may not. This is kind of a hard question. But while we're also talking about flies, I didn't mention at the beginning, but I will mention it now, that Daddy Flies is actually, they have donated a box of 12 flies that we will be raffling off tonight to folks who are attending. So the caveat is we're going to raffle that off at the end, and you have to be present to actually win it. So if you decide to check out early and we call your name, unfortunately, it's going to go to the next person who is still on the broadcast. So if you are interested in potentially winning a dozen flies from Daddy Fly Shop, make sure you hang in there to the end. All right. Yes, bribery works.
I love it. Do we have any responses on which fly it is? Mother's Day caddis.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna actually, I mean, that's, wow, that is a hard one. If you're just checking in because you're new to fly fishing, this is definitely a hard question. I'm gonna put the poll results up there. So 63% of folks said the Mother's Day caddis fly was invented on the Esopus Creek in the Catskills. What do you say, Kelly? What's the right answer?
I think it's, what's our poll at?
63% for Mother's Day caddis.
I think it's the ISO.
It's the Isonychia. That's cool. We all learned something today. Awesome.
And there's a picture of the Isonychia, actually. That was fun. Yes, perfect. Flies are what fish eat. Real simple. They're the artificial imitation of the aquatic insect or small creature. That could be also the imitation. They come in a variety of sizes and patterns, and they all represent the stages of insect development. And the trout are very much in tune to that. And it does correlate with the season. There is a type of caddis that does come out around the traditional second week in May, if the hatches are on time, called the Mother's Day caddis. So that is a good one to take a look at. The parachute Adams, the fly that Krista mentioned in the poll, is an imitation of generic mayflies. There is no bug persistent to the parachute Adams, but it does represent as an attractor fly. Flies can be used in all water conditions at all types of seasons in the year. And that's what we talk about reading the water. That's key to fly fishing. When you take the water, if you're looking at a piece of body of water, there's always the top, the surface. Then there's something, the column is in the middle. And then there's the bottom of the watershed, of the waterbed, whether it's a rocky bottom or sandy, silty bottom. Ponds have it, every water column does. And when you're reading the water, you're noticing what's going on the surface. Is it a still water, so if a pond, then you're going to have some activity on top. You're going to see insects and birds fluttering around. You might see a frog or two if there's some lily pad or algae. That's your top water. You don't see much of a current or a stream unless there's a river or a creek flowing into that pond. But if you're in a river, you'll see water moving fast. You'll see water moving slow, protruding from the water, whether it's a rock or a tree branch or a stump, that all form different feeding patterns for the fish that are lying below, particularly trout. And when you're reading the water, you're looking at that. You're looking at what's going on the surface. What do you think is going on as the undercurrent? Water always moves faster on the bottom than it does on the top. So if the water looks like it's moving faster on the top, it's definitely cranking on the bottom. And fish are there. they're holding down, they're looking for insects, they're looking for food particles that come their way. They don't like to exert energy. They like to lie in seams on the side of the bank or close to the bank. They like shelter, they like trees, they like rocks, wherever that they can sit the most comfortable and not have to exert a lot of energy and have food coming out down for them, that they literally just have to open their mouth and eat something, is the perfect life for a trout. Who wouldn't love just to have food walk by you? It's a Homer Simpson moment and you could just grab a donut, boom, there it is. So cover, shelter, the current, the time of day. If it's morning, afternoon, night, you will not see fish rising or fish coming up on the surface if it's very bright and sunny, especially if the water is low and clear, because birds, they have natural predators that are also going to be looking for them too. So the sunny days, you'll see them closer to the banks, but not saying there can't be one or two fish there. There is that learning curve, and there is the smarter fish and the slower fish, and maybe someone does come up and becomes lunch for birds. When we talk about flies, here is the really basic mayfly etymology from David Kyle's book on bugs. And it starts with the nymph on the bottom. And these are sometimes bead heads or sometimes streamers that you could use that will then move to the middle of the emerging and the emerger and the eggs. And then you have your your typical mayfly on top of the surface, and then your spinners that are egg laying and then going into their last bit of their life cycle. So from the very bottom, the nymph, all the way to the spinner, the end of the life cycle of the mayfly. These bugs are all food sources for trout. Filling your fly box. When you look at flies, there's some bass flies there. There's some heritage catskill flies, and there's some, looks like tungsten beadhead jigs and nymphs. Nymphs float near the bottom or the middle of the water column. You could adjust that depending on how you're fishing, and they resemble the very early baby bug stages, the nymphal stages. Streamers also could float, sink. They do go under the middle and the bottom of the water column. They resemble bait fish. You could have weighted streamers that kind of clunk up and down on the bottom, or you could choose to strip them and keep them floating towards the bottom or the middle. Your wet flies also float through the water column. They resemble an emerging insect, so you could have some fun with that, stripping them back, floating them, swinging them. And then your dry flies, which are probably the most enthusiastic of all anglers, they float on the top with a little help of silicone floatant. They resemble the insect on top of the water, and they are what you see when the fish comes up with the water, Shamu style, and eats a fly. That's a wonderful sight. It's a thrill, and that's why people, I think, love fly fishing, because they love seeing that take. Once you start filling your box, you are ready to go. But we talked about on Instagram that there are barriers to fly fishing, of why people see it as something hard and something that they can't do. People say it's expensive. They don't know where to go. They don't know what flies to use. They don't know how to find time, or their just life is too busy. Not having proper mentors that they feel that can help them learn it. It's too hard, and they have no one to fish with. These are all barriers that are very true and very real. I will not deny that and say that they do not exist, but there are ways to get around that. That's my dad in the picture. He's my first fishing buddy. He's a steadfast believer: where there's a will, there is a way. And these are the ways that we sometimes have to work harder to find. If it's expensive, we look for gear swaps, renting gear, used gear. There's tons of price points for gear to get you out there. And if there's not, you have to keep looking, whether it's sales and shops and yard sales and Craigslist, it's there. When we talk about where to go, it's feeling safe. It's your travel distance, it's your cost, it's wherever you can get legal access to fish. Ponds, parks, rivers, even golf courses have ponds with fish in them. You just have to ask permission and do it in the rightful and lawful way. But wherever there's a body of water, I'm fairly certain that 99.9% there's a fish in there. There's there. The learning curve, try to keep it simple. Just have a few basics with you: a woolly bugger, a pheasant's tail, a parachute, Adams. 3 flies will get you a day or 2 on the water, as long as you don't lose them. Finding time is hard. Our lives have been disrupted and changed with the pandemic that we're currently still working through. So finding time is something, that makes it personal, makes it reflective for you. Consider it an outing and a joy for yourself. It is overwhelming. It is hard to learn these things, but don't get caught up in the hype. Get outside, fish, throw your brain away and just give it a try. And that's what we tell people in the shop, that yes, it's hard, but lots of things in life are hard. So toss it aside for a second and just give it a try. It's okay to fail, because We all do on many different levels and different things. So give it a try. And that's the most important point of it. If you don't have anyone to fish with, that's a very real thing. Navigating fishing by myself when I relocated to a different state was hard. You don't feel, maybe as a woman, you don't feel safe, or even as a gentleman, you wonder, where do you go? Always let people know where you're fishing. Finding fishing groups, clubs allows access, allows places to go. You could find mentors and support very easily. Some dues are, as low as $25. Some dues could be $5,000 a year, depending on the club and the type. Anglers tend to be happy-go-lucky people. Approaching them on streamside is a wonderful way to say, hey, I'm new to the sport. Do you have any advice for me? People love to talk about fishing. We find that a lot. They love to share their experiences. And I hope that you do get to run into a friendly person, who will take you on and explain to you some things. And if not, joining a club is definitely a way to get through that barrier of fly fishing. So how to learn? You got to go into research mode, like you were learning anything else. If you were buying a car, if you were learning archery, if you were deciding that you wanted to train to climb El Cap, you got to start by researching somewhere. Books, magazines, the internet, videos, podcasts, seminars like this. This is a very basic one, but it gets your foot wet. It gets you sort of enticed and interested in it. Scouting and observation, always being aware of your surroundings, the flora, the fauna, the water conditions, the air conditions. Maybe you have someone that you know who fishes. Join in on their trip. They might actually have some extra gear to loan you too. So once you start going into research mode on the solo end, you get going and you look for support. We are interactive humans. We want to learn and engage from each other. So is it time for a poll question, Krista?
Sure.
I wasn't sure if this is our right slide.
If this is, I've lost track of which slides we're on, but that's okay. Let's see. Let's go with, it's been a while since we asked.
The 16 or 17?
Oops, that was the wrong one. Oh, I have the wrong poll question up here. Anyhow, what are the 3 main types of bugs that form the majority of the trout diet? This one's too easy, I know. If you're paying attention, Kelly gave you the answer here. I feel like I want to play some Jeopardy music here. I'll just say too that being a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers for me has connected me to a group of folks who I can call up and, hey, you want to go fishing? Hey, let's go hunt this here. So if one of your barriers to getting involved in fly fishing is not having people to go with, or even like knowing where to go, that getting involved in a group like BHA, if you're not already a member, is a really excellent way to meet cool folks who are super amped to, introduce new folks, help them get into the outdoors and experience hunting and angling. So join us. All right, that one was too easy. 92% of you got it right. Mayflies, caddisflies, stoneflies. Yes, they eat grasshoppers. Yes, they eat midges, but the vast majority of the diet is mayflies, caddisflies, and stoneflies.
Absolutely. So as Krista said, joining groups, getting support, communing with others that have the same interests as you. The top 3 ways to get that support: visit a fly shop or a fly section of a retail. Best advice, those staff that are working there, they love to fish. They know the water. They probably fish it close to 200 days a year. They have the needed intel on local conditions. And you're supporting a small business, which is always an awesome, awesome thing. If you don't feel comfortable heading into a fly shop, I understand that's a real thing for some people. Hire a fishing guide. These are licensed in New York, insured and knowledgeable people who fish quite often. They know the waters. They have a very intimate relationship with where they fish and why they fish and how they fish. And they are glad to share that knowledge with you, because one angler turns into two anglers, which turns into three, and it keeps multiplying. And the more people we have that are on the water, that are aware of the water, are aware of the resources, will be the first ones to want to protect them, who will want to see them clean, who will want to see them there for the next generation of future anglers and conservationists. And if you don't want to hire a fishing guide and you don't feel like visiting a shop, then you have organizations to build that network of angling and fishing. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the name anglers are right in the title. Brown Folks Fish, Fly Fishers International, Latino Outdoors, the Metropolitan Fly Fishers in New York City, Theodore Gordon Fly Fishers, and Trout Unlimited. Those aren't all of them, but those are ones that are active within the New York State area, all across the area. There are nominal membership fees to join in. There are outings. The pandemic has changed some of those outings, but there is from virtual seminars to meetups to socially distanced fishing events. You'll see that they're all there. Some of these groups are very large, like Trout Unlimited and Fly Fishers International, boasting thousands of members. I think Trout Unlimited is up to like 240 or something. Fly Fishers International is over 100,000. To some are very, very small. Theodore Gordon Fly Fishers might be about 300 or so members. But all these groups offer the advice, they offer the knowledge, and they offer the willingness to share and to bring on and to educate a new angler. And I think for those who've said that's a big barrier, this is an easy way to start off and to get some and get yourself in the door and understand how to, the support is there, the membership helps. Wonder how many members we have in New York BCHA.
I don't know. Let's find out what other people think. How many New York BHA members do we have? Anybody want to hazard a guess? Oh, I should actually like hit the launch poll feature.
It's a Thursday. We're getting ready for the weekend.
My brain is already on fish, you know, like I'm already thinking about next Thursday. Like I'm not thinking about launching polls.
Oh, that's a tough one. I see it moving over 500, over 1,000. I'm going to go with, do we have over 500?
We have over 500.
Awesome.
We are right about 1,000 members here in New York, members of BHA. Again, as I mentioned, BHA is a national organization. There are chapters across almost every state, provinces in Canada. We also have collegiate chapters. If you are a student at a university here in New York and you'd like to have a BHA club, please reach out and get in touch with us. We're working actually on developing our collegiate program here in New York. But we have just around 1,000 members here in New York, but we have a goal of getting to 5,000 or more members. So come join us and help us reach that goal.
Cool. And to support that goal, I have lots of gratitude for those that gave up some time on their Thursday night to have a very basic intro to fly fishing. And now we open it up for some questions. That's me, Kelly at Duddy Flies. Give me a call, give me an email, whatever you need. I'd be glad to help you out and share the passion and knowledge and history that we have.
Awesome.
And that's the end of my spiel. Cool.
Are we about ready to do our drawing for the flies?
Do we have any questions or any comments in the chat feature? Does anyone have anything they want to share?
What is a good way to find places to fish? Duncan wants to know.
A good place to find places to fish.
A good way to find places to fish.
I would say first stop would be to figure out what region you are in, New York State DEC, and pull up the DEC maps to see what rivers, watersheds, ponds, water bodies are near you. Once you can get that information, Google Maps, driving around and looking at those fishing access points to see what the water looks like itself, utilizing fly shops, whether you call or go in and just say, hey, I'm curious about Onondaga Creek. Looks like it's 10 miles from my house. That's up near the Syracuse area. Can you tell me a little bit about it? That's where you're going to get the best intel, is from somebody in person or somebody who's fished there. I've driven around. The Sopus is further northwestern Catskills, but I've driven around and looked at some of the stops. New York DEC does mark their fishing access with brown and yellow signs. They're very easy to find. I've seen people gearing up in the parking lot, and it's, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm new to fishing this spot in this area. Do you have any idea? Can you give me some thoughts on what works, or how, you know, is the river hard or easy to navigate? So I think that you'll find anglers are extremely sociable and willing to share. So that would be the easiest two ways to find water: to physically go out and explore, or to start looking at maps.
Yeah, Duncan, I'll also add that, like, on the DEC's website for a given watershed, you can often like search by, like, say, beaver kill, and come up with a map that will show you all the public fishing rights along that creek or stream or river or whatever it is. So those are all places where people have, like, landowners have negotiated that they're okay with people walking across their land in order to access that stream or whatnot. You can't do that with every landowner. So the public fishing rights, the maps, really like help you determine where that is and where potential parking spots are to get in and access the water. So the DEC website has some really awesome maps that can get you started. Paul wanted to know, he's looking for a nice, affordable 6-foot-ish 2-weight. Any recommendations?
Tons of them out there. I would look at Echo as a 6-weight line, Echo, or 6-weight rod, Echo, Fenwick. I'm trying to think of some others that are out there in those in a price point. I'm guessing maybe under 200 or so. He could send me an email and I could send him some links. If he's going to freshwater fish, if he's going to saltwater fish, it depends on if he's mousing, like what he's using the rod for.
He does have an Echo 4-weight glass rod that he loves. So,
oh, they are sweet fiberglass rods.
CJ wanted to know if there are good waders that you'd recommend for diverse body types.
Oh, some types of waders. I like Aquas. I like Hodgman, but they just discontinued their waders. Chota has a great wader type. If you're looking for women-centric waders, Miss Mayfly fits quite a few body types. Trying to think of some others that are out there. LL Bean, I think, has pretty decent sized waders. Shorts, tall, men, women. I'm not sure if they make kids waders.
Anybody else have any other questions they want to drop into the chat? This will be, the recording of tonight's presentation will go up on our YouTube page. So you will be able to watch and review the presentation later. Paul wants to know why hip boots are out of vogue.
I don't know. For me, I'm not barely 5'6". Hip boots don't cover. I'm very limited where I could fish. I think more people just find that waders, that extra bit of fabric, the pockets, it's just a little bit more easier for them to access more water. If someone was 6 feet wearing hip boots, I think they'd have a better chance at walking along riverbed and going close to the middle of a river, depending on which river, than they would with waders. But I think the technology has just advanced ourselves that we can be there. We could immerse ourselves.
Any tips or tricks on how to approach a pool that looks nice without spooking fish?
Ooh, don't go in that pool. Approach it from the bank. And if you do approach it from coming up water, if you're coming to the tail out of the pool or you're approaching the head of the pool, I would take a good 10, 15 minutes to observe. Once I got to where I wanted to be, I would do the stone standstill trick and spend some time observing, give the water a chance to calm itself down, let the fish that have now maybe moved slightly because they've sensed some turbulence in the water, come back to where they were lying, where they were feeding, and start watching the surface, watching for bugs, watching for birds, seeing if there's any rises or any dimples on the surface. And then I'd probably start casting towards the bank and then working my way towards me.
Awesome. Ben wants to know anything we should know about the etiquette of fishing a stream when others are already there.
It's a great question. And I love that it's etiquette because it is a kindness. It is a shared knowledge. If you pull up to a parking lot of fishing access and you see that there's already 3 or 4 cars, my rule of thumb is even if that's one angler in each of those cars, that's 4 too many people there, I'll go find another spot. Part of, I think, fly fishing is that we like to have that solitude and that quietude to ourselves. If you do approach a pool, or you're walking downstream, maybe you're heading back to your car and you start to see that there's people there, I always give a wave or a hey, hello to alert them that I'm there so that they don't think it's a bear or somebody else. If I'm coming through the woods and I happen to see 3 or 4 people in that pool, I'll ask them if they're fishing upstream or downstream. And if they say they've covered downstream, they're heading upstream, then I'm going to go back downstream. I'm going to fish where they already fished. I'm not going to go upstream if that's where they're working. They were there first. And I do believe in the etiquette that if they were there first and they tell you where they're going to be fishing, fish away from them. They were there, and eventually they'll keep moving upstream and you could start moving to the point of where they are. The etiquette to not go in and make room for yourself and sort of throw elbows is not cool. In my opinion, I would fish somewhere else, and give them the space, because I think, whatever I do to somebody else can get done back to me. So if I was fishing and someone came in, and it's happened quite a bit, and they say, hey, can you move over and give me some room? I will. But I also let them know that there's plenty of other rivers for them. And I feel like sometimes I'm forced out, but that would be my advice on etiquette.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions before we do the drawing for the box of flies? Anybody? So Brian, if you can get me the random number generator of who actually won the raffle from the folks who are attending, while you put that together for us, I am going to make a quick plug. Somebody did say something in the chat about how asking about whether or not we were going to have any like regional based meetups this summer. And that reminded me that I wanted to make a plug for this year in July. New York BHA is actually hosting National BHA's Muster in the Mountains. And this is, usually BHA does a huge rendezvous out in Montana every year. And it's like a big just party where everybody like comes from all over the place. And 2 years ago, we started doing one in the East and the West, so that, all of us folks over here on the east side of the Mississippi could attend. I was able to go to the first one that was down in Pennsylvania. It was a super fun time. We had camping, and yeah, really awesome stuff. So this year we're going to have it not in Pennsylvania, but we're going to have it here in New York. And it's going to be at Westkill Brewing up in the Catskills on Region 3/Region 4 here in New York. And we will have lots of fun activities for folks. There may even be a casting clinic, I think, that will be happening. So if you haven't got a chance to by then try some fly fishing or pick up a rod and play around with casting, come join us at the Muster in the Mountains, and there'll be some casting clinics. I think we're going to do like a 3D archery type thing. There's going to be lots of raffles. There's going to be food trucks. You can camp out. And of course, because it's at Westkill Brewing, there's going to be amazing beer. So if for nothing else, come for the beer. And if you buy a ticket, I think you actually get to become a member of New York BHA. Yes.
Yes. And you have the Westkill River. If at the top of the
Right.
pool, you have the Westkill River with some heritage brookies in there. Someone made a
Totally.
comment about the blue lines. I
Yeah.
love those little streams. I love to share when people find them and discover them.
Yeah.
But I do sort of say reserved about mentioning them in presentations because there are some beautiful gems. That's part of the fun of fly fishing forces you to get outside and it forces you to move. It's very easy to find spots where you could just park and be 25 feet into the woods and into a river. But those ones that you have to hike into are definitely worth it at the end of the day.
Yes, there is lots of great fishing around Westkill. So if you have a rod and some waders, bring them with you. Come join us. It's going to be July 17th and 18th up at Westkill Brewing. And without further ado, I have the winner of the fly box. Do you want to hear who it is, Kelly?
Woohoo! Yeah, who is it?
It is Rebecca Stetler.
Woohoo!
Stelter? Sorry, Rebecca, I'm murdering your last name. Rebecca. I hope you're still on the call. Go ahead and send us an email. You can email me. I'll actually send you a direct email or direct in the chat, my email. And go ahead and email me and your address, and we will ship out to you a box of 12 hand-tied flies from Daddy Flies. Congratulations, Rebecca.
Yay!
Yay!
Ask
Awesome.
Rebecca if she wants a mix of flies or if she wants some dries. I'll customize her a box.
If you know what you want, Rebecca, put it
Hi,
in
sorry.
when you send it to me.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you're on. Okay.
Oh,
Hi.
perfect. Hi. Great. Thank you. I'm so excited.
This is awesome. What do you want in your box?
Pardon?
What do you know what kind of flies you want in your box? Do you want like
I think I want
flies?
dry flies.
All right.
I'm not in the New York area. I'm in British Columbia.
That's a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us all the way from British Columbia.
Yeah, I'm really I had a friend who sent it to me and I'm so happy that I did. Thank you for putting this on.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Totally.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us. You're welcome, Dylan. Thank you, everybody who participated tonight. Do we have anything we need to like wrap up here, Kelly?
No, I'm good. Stay
No?
safe, everyone. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email or call the shop and I'll be glad to help you out.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Nate, for reminding us. So next month, folks, we are going to be doing a virtual Learn to Hunt series on turkey. We'll be talking turkeys. May 1st is the opening day for New York's turkey season. I know I am super excited. I've got all my box calls. I've got my mouth calls. I'm walking around in the woods sounding like, I don't know. I think I sound like a kazoo. I don't think I sound like a turkey yet, but I keep trying. So come join us on next month in April for our turkey virtual Learn to Hunt series. All right. So look for that in your inboxes when the invite goes out so you can sign up, get the link on Zoom to join us here for everything turkey next month. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Stay safe. And if you're not a BHA member, come join us.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Great.
Kelly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Kelly and Krista. That'll wrap it up. I'll go ahead and close the Facebook feed and wrap up the recording. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Be well.